A week before Christmas, I discovered my family planned to embarrass me in front of everyone and then throw me out, so I changed my plans. On December 24th, Mom called asking, "Where are you?" I laughed and told her not to wait for me or the food. Can you imagine overhearing your own family planning to publicly humiliate you on Christmas Day, then clear out your childhood bedroom while you're still sitting there, completely unaware? Because that's exactly what happened to me, Francis, and it shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. For as long as I could remember, Christmas was my favorite holiday. Growing up in the Harper family of Greenwich, Connecticut, it meant extravagant celebrations, opulent decorations, and a guest list that read like a who's who of local power players. But as the designated black sheep, the one who chose a jewelry business over a corporate career, I always tried harder to fit in, to prove I belonged. Last December, I arrived early, full of hope, ready to help with preparations, when I accidentally overheard a conversation that didn't just shatter everything, it utterly destroyed it. My own family was plotting to publicly shame me at Christmas dinner, then clear out my childhood bedroom while I sat there, devastated. It was a betrayal so profound, I still struggle to process it. The Harpers, you see, were known for three things: money, influence, and impossibly high expectations. My father, Thomas Harper, was the quintessential self-made man, an investment firm titan whose success story was practically glorified. My mother, Diane, came from old money, serving on more charity boards than you could count. Then there were my siblings. Jordan, for years older, followed perfectly in Dad's footsteps. Amanda, 2 years older, became the corporate attorney our parents loved to brag about at their country club gatherings. And then there was me, Frances Harper, the one who was supposed to complete the perfect family trifecta, but instead became their biggest disappointment. Since childhood, the plan for me was clear: prestigious university, law or finance degree, then join either the family firm or a company impressive enough to mention at dinner parties. I dutifully attended Columbia University. But during my sophomore year, something unexpected happened. I took a metalworking class as an elective, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly alive creating with my hands. It was like a switch flipped. By senior year, instead of applying to law schools, I was selling my handcrafted jewelry at campus events. The family reaction? Immediate and severe. My father refused to speak to me for 3 months. My mother tried to schedule meetings with family friends in law firm recruitment. My siblings? They just alternated between awkward silence and lecturing me about throwing away my potential. It was exhausting. Despite their disapproval, I graduated, used my meager savings, and rented a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn. That was my first workshop. I ate ramen for months, worked 16-hour days, and slowly, painstakingly, built Francesca designs from nothing. 5 years later, my pieces were being carried in boutiques across New York and New Jersey. I was finally making a comfortable living doing what I loved. Not that my family ever acknowledged it as legitimate success, of course. At every family gathering, the conversation about my work went the same way. Mom would sigh and ask, "So, you're still doing that jewelry thing?" Dad would follow with his usual, "When you're ready to get serious about your future, let me know." Jordan would offer to look over my books, as though I was playing business, not running one. And Amanda? She'd helpfully email me corporate job listings for executive assistant positions, as if my degree and business experience counted for nothing. It was like banging my head against a wall year after year. Christmas at the Harper household was a particularly elaborate affair. My parents owned a colonial mansion with 6 bedrooms, a grand staircase perfect for family photos, and a dining room that could comfortably seat 20. Each December, my mother transformed it into something straight out of an architectural magazine. Professional decorators imported ornaments and color schemes that changed yearly. These gatherings were less about celebration and more about status. The guest list included extended family, business associates, and influential friends. The conversation revolved around promotions, vacations to exclusive resorts, and which Ivy League schools were recruiting which children. In that setting, my modest jewelry business might as well have been a lemonade stand. Still, every year I tried. I dressed in expensive clothes I could barely afford. I prepared answers about my business that sounded more impressive than the reality. I brought thoughtfully created gifts that usually ended up regifted or in a drawer somewhere. I showed up with homemade cookies that sat untouched next to the professional caterer's creations. I endured the polite smiles and quick subject changes when I spoke about my latest collection. This particular Christmas was especially important to my parents. Relatives from the West Coast and Europe were flying in, some of whom hadn't visited in years. My mother had been planning it since August, hiring additional household staff and renovating the guest quarters. When she called in November about the gathering, I heard a tiny hint of genuine excitement in her voice for the first time when speaking to me. "Frances, everyone will be here this year. Even Grandmother Harper is flying in from London. We need to present a united family front." That minuscule hint of inclusion, that tiny sliver of hope, made me redouble my efforts. I spent 3 months designing a special collection of personalized pieces for everyone attending. For my father, cufflinks incorporating the design of his first business card. For my mother, a delicate necklace featuring her favorite flowers. For my siblings, matching bracelets with subtle symbols of our childhood memories. For extended family, carefully crafted pieces tailored to their tastes and personalities. I even invested in new business cards with a subtle gold foil logo and packaging that would impress the Harper sensibilities. Maybe this would be the year they finally saw my business as legitimate. Maybe this would be the Christmas I finally felt like I truly belonged in my own family. The week before Christmas, I finished the last of my holiday orders, packed up my family gifts, and drove my second-hand Subaru from Brooklyn to Greenwich, arriving at the family estate. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this time would be different. I had no idea that this visit would completely change the course of my life, my relationship with my family, and my understanding of what Christmas actually meant. I pulled into the circular driveway of my parents' home around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The house was already transformed for Christmas, draped in professionally installed white lights, massive wreaths on each window, and 2 perfectly symmetrical decorated trees flanking the front entrance. A team of landscapers was placing the finishing touches on the outdoor arrangements. I gathered my overnight bag and the box containing the samples of my gift jewelry pieces, planning to show my mother how much thought I had put into each creation. Maybe this would be the year she finally appreciated my artistic talent. Maria, the housekeeper, answered the door with a warm smile. Unlike my family, Maria had always shown genuine interest in my jewelry business, even proudly wearing a simple silver bracelet I had given her years ago. "Miss Frances, so good to see you," she said. "Your mother and sister are in the kitchen with the caterer." I thanked her and made my way through the immaculate house, noticing fresh floral arrangements on every surface and new furniture in the living room. The kitchen had been recently renovated with stark white marble and stainless steel appliances, making it look more like an operating room than a place to prepare food. My mother and Amanda stood huddled over a tablet with a man in a chef coat. They barely looked up when I entered. "Frances, finally," my mother said without moving to hug me. "The guest room on the east wing is prepared for you. Not your old room. We needed that for additional storage this year." No hello. No, how was your drive? Not even a mention of the fact that my old room had been my bedroom for 18 years of my life. "Hi, Mom." "Amanda," I offered, still determined to start things positively. "The house looks beautiful." Amanda glanced up briefly. "You look tired. The city must be wearing you down." Not a question, just a judgment, thinly disguised as concern. I forced a smile. "Actually, business has been great. Really busy with holiday orders. I brought some samples of the gifts I made for everyone to show you both." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "We are in the middle of finalizing the menu. Perhaps later. The caterer needs our attention." The caterer, a tall man with a precisely trimmed beard, gave me a sympathetic look. I had clearly been dismissed. "Sure, no problem. I'll just take my things upstairs." Neither of them responded as I left the kitchen. The familiar knot of disappointment tightened in my stomach, but I pushed it down. This was nothing new. I just needed to find the right moment to connect with them. After settling into the guest room, I decided to seek out my father and brother, hoping for a warmer reception. As I approached my father's study, I heard multiple voices engaged in what sounded like an intense conversation. I was about to knock when I heard my name. Francis needs to understand that this jewelry hobby is not a sustainable future, my father's voice declared firmly. I froze, my hands suspended inches from the door. That's why I invited Stephen, my brother Jordan replied. As a financial advisor, he can present the hard numbers during the intervention. Show her exactly how precarious her situation is compared to a real career. Intervention? My heart began pounding as I carefully positioned myself beside the partially open door, out of sight, but able to hear clearly. Do you really think an intervention during Christmas dinner is the right approach? This voice belonged to my Uncle Robert, my father's younger brother. It is the perfect time, my mother's voice joined in. I hadn't even realized she had left the kitchen. With the entire family present, she will feel the appropriate pressure to finally make a sensible decision. I have already spoken with Lawrence at the firm, my father continued. He can create a position for her in the marketing department. Nothing demanding, but it will give her structure and a proper salary. My sister Amanda's voice chimed in. I think we need to be very direct. The last time I suggested she consider other options, she went on about how her Instagram followers had increased, as if that is a measure of success. They all laughed, the sound cutting through me like glass. What exactly are you planning to say? Uncle Robert asked, still sounding uncertain. We will wait until after the main course, my mother explained, her voice shifting into the same tone she used when planning her charity galas. Thomas will bring up our concern for Francis's future. Then Jordan will introduce Stephen, who will present a brief financial assessment of her so-called business versus a corporate position. I have gathered some numbers, Jordan added. Based on her apartment size and lifestyle, she can barely be making $30,000 a year. Stephen will contrast that with entry-level corporate positions starting at twice that amount. They had been investigating me, calculating my worth based on my apartment size. The violation felt physical, like a blow to my chest. I still don't understand why this needs to be done publicly at Christmas dinner, Uncle Robert persisted. Because she needs to feel the weight of family expectations, my mother replied coolly. When she sees everyone's concern, she will finally understand how her choices affect the family reputation. The Morgan's daughter just made junior partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, while our daughter sells trinkets at craft fairs. It is embarrassing. Asterisk trinkets. Craft fairs. Asterisk little did they know I had moved beyond those years ago, now supplying to respected boutiques and receiving regular custom commissions. Not that they had ever bothered to ask. And what if she refuses? Uncle Robert asked. A heavy silence followed before my father spoke. Then we make it clear that our financial support ends completely. I almost gasped aloud before catching myself. What financial support? I had been fully self-sufficient since graduation. A fact they would know if they had paid any attention to my actual life. While she is at dinner, I have arranged for the staff to clear out her childhood bedroom completely, my mother added. Cousin Bethany needs the space, and it is time Frances understood she cannot keep one foot in each world. My vision blurred with tears. The bedroom where I had grown up, filled with mementos, journals, and keepsakes, was to be emptied while I sat through a public humiliation. She still has those ridiculous participation trophies from grade school art classes displayed on the bookshelf, Amanda said with a laugh, as if those validated her choice to throw away a real career on this jewelry hobby. Did you see what she wore to Thanksgiving? My mother joined in. That handmade dress that looked like something from a thrift store. If she is going to insist on this artistic lifestyle, she could at least dress properly when representing the family. The dress had been designed by a friend who was launching a small fashion line. I had worn it proudly to support her work. Well, maybe this intervention will finally get through to her, Jordan concluded. 28 is not too late to start over with a respectable career. I have the perfect analogy prepared, my mother said, sounding pleased with herself. I am going to tell her that her little jewelry business is like the macaroni art we used to hang on the refrigerator. Cute as a childhood phase, but not something to build a life around. They all laughed again, and I heard the sound of glasses clinking in a toast. I backed away from the door, silently, tears streaming down my face. Every word had sliced through years of trying to earn their approval, years of making myself smaller to fit their expectations, years of seeking a validation that clearly would never come. Their plans were crystal clear: ambush me, humiliate me in front of the entire extended family, pressure me into abandoning my business, and erase my presence from the family home. All on Christmas Day. I walked in a daze back to the guest room, closed the door behind me, and sank to the floor, my back against the bed. The beautiful jewelry pieces I had created for them sat in their velvet boxes, each one representing hours of work and thought and love that they would never appreciate or understand. For the first time, I saw with perfect clarity what my family truly thought of me and my choices. This was not tough love or misguided concern. This was control, manipulation, and a fundamental lack of respect for who I actually was. I don't remember packing my overnight bag. I don't remember walking down the back staircase to avoid being seen. I don't remember the brief conversation with Maria in which I mumbled something about an emergency back in the city. The next clear memory I have is sitting in my car at a rest stop on the highway, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called Zoe, my best friend since college and the person who had helped me set up my first jewelry display at a local market. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Francis, are you already at the family compound of doom? How bad is it this year?" The sound of her voice, so familiar and caring, broke the shock that had been numbing me. I burst into tears, barely able to get words out between sobs. They were planning an intervention at Christmas dinner, financial shaming, clearing out my room. Whoa, slow down. Zoe's voice shifted immediately to concern. "Where are you right now? Are you safe?" I looked around at the brightly lit rest stop, generic holiday music playing faintly from outdoor speakers. "I'm at a rest stop." I left. I couldn't stay there after what I heard. "Good. You shouldn't be driving this upset. Just breathe for a minute, okay?" I followed her instructions, taking several deep breaths as she patiently waited on the line. After a few minutes, I was calm enough to explain everything I had overheard in detail. Zoe listened without interrupting, then said exactly what I needed to hear. "Those absolute monsters, Francis. You know none of what they said is true, right? Your business is legitimate and successful. You are talented and hardworking. They are just too wrapped up in their narrow definition of success to see it. But what if they are right?" I whispered, old insecurities flooding back. "What if I am just playing at business while everyone else is building real careers?" "Are you kidding me, Francis?" she exclaimed. "Last month, you turned down wholesale orders because you were at production capacity. You have a wait list for custom pieces. You just hired your first part-time assistant. Those are not signs of a failing business or a hobby." She was right. While I had downplayed my success to my family to avoid their criticism or having to defend my choices, the reality was that Francesca Designs had grown steadily every year. I had recently been approached by a national retailer interested in carrying a diffusion line of my most popular pieces. I was actually considering renting a larger workshop space to accommodate the growth. "Why do I still care what they think?" I asked, wiping away tears. "Why, after all these years of dismissal and criticism, do I still seek their approval?" "Because they're your family," Zoe said gently. "And because they programmed you from birth to measure your worth by their standards. Breaking that conditioning is hard work." As we talked, memories of other dismissals and humiliations surfaced. The time my mother introduced me to her friends as still finding her way when I was 3 years old. The business school graduation where my father spent the entire dinner talking about Jordan's new promotion. The Thanksgiving when Amanda asked if I needed money for proper clothes in front of everyone. Each incident had hurt, but I had always made excuses for them, always tried harder to earn their approval. "Do you want to come stay with me tonight?" Zoe offered. "You shouldn't be alone after this." "Thank you, but I think I need my own space to process. I'll call you tomorrow after I've had some sleep." After hanging up, I drove back to my Brooklyn apartment on autopilot. The small one-bedroom that my family saw as a sign of failure felt like a sanctuary as I locked the door behind me. This space, paid for entirely by my own hard work, represented a freedom they would never understand. I moved through the apartment in a daze, looking at the evidence of my actual life rather than the fictional, failing one my family had constructed. The wall of framed press clippings from design blogs and local magazines that had featured my work. The organized workflow of my home studio space. The spreadsheets tracking 5 years of steadily increasing revenue. The portfolio of customer testimonials and repeat clients. I opened my laptop and looked at the email I had been hesitating to answer for 2 weeks. The national retailer Silver and Stone was offering a significant opportunity to feature a collection of my designs in their spring catalog, with a minimum order that would double my annual revenue. I had been unsure about scaling up production while maintaining quality. But suddenly, the decision seemed clear. This was a legitimate business opportunity that any real businessperson would recognize as valuable. I looked at childhood photos still displayed on my bookshelf. My family at the beach when I was 10, everyone smiling for the camera. My high school graduation with my parents flanking me proudly. Were those moments real, or just performances for public consumption? Had there ever been a time when they truly accepted me as I was? I barely slept that night, cycling between tears, anger, and a strange sense of clarity that was slowly emerging from the pain. By morning, exhausted but calmer, I realized I was facing a fundamental choice: continue seeking approval that would never come, or finally prioritize my own well-being and worth. For the first time, the answer seemed obvious. I deserved better than what happened yesterday. I deserved better than what they were planning. I deserved to be seen and valued for who I actually was, not who they wanted me to be. The realization did not immediately erase 28 years of emotional programming, but it created a small, solid foundation on which I could stand and begin to build something new. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes, but unexpected clarity. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother and a text that simply read, "Where are you? The caterer needs final numbers." No concern about my abrupt departure. No questions about my well-being, just logistics for her perfect Christmas gathering. I set the phone down without responding and made myself a cup of coffee. As I sat at my small kitchen table surrounded by jewelry designs and order forms, a plan began forming in my mind. For once, I would not react emotionally or impulsively. I would be strategic and deliberate, just as I had been in building my business. First, I called my therapist, Dr. Winters, and explained the situation, asking for an emergency session. Thankfully, she had an opening that afternoon. "What you overheard was emotional abuse, Francis," she said during our session. "Their planned intervention was not about helping you, but about controlling you and bringing you back in line with their expectations." "But they're my family," I said the words, feeling hollow even as I spoke them. Families should provide love, support, and respect. Being related by blood does not give anyone the right to demean you or dictate your life choices. You have built a successful creative business on your own terms. That deserves celebration, not an intervention. We spent the rest of the session discussing healthy boundaries and the grief that comes with accepting family members as they truly are, rather than who we wish they were. By the end, I had the emotional framework to support the practical plan taking shape in my mind. Back at my apartment, I created a detailed action plan, breaking it down into manageable steps. Step 1. I would not attend the family Christmas gathering. I wouldn't directly inform them. I would let them discover my absence when I failed to appear. Step 2. I would contact Silver and Stone and accept their offer to feature my jewelry in their spring catalog. This was a business decision I had been considering anyway, but the timing now felt symbolic as well as practical. Step 3. I would plan an alternative Christmas celebration with my chosen family of friends who had consistently supported my dreams and valued my work. Step 4. I would arrange for delivery of the family gifts I had already created, along with personalized notes, to arrive at my parents' home on Christmas Eve, when I would have been expected to arrive. Step 5. I would develop clear boundaries for any future interactions with my family, including what behavior I would and would not tolerate. Step 6. I would retrieve my childhood possessions from my parents' home before they could be discarded. This last step presented the biggest challenge. I called a lawyer friend who specialized in property rights to ask for advice. She confirmed what I feared. Technically, Anything I had left in my parents' home could be considered abandoned property since I had moved out years ago. However, she suggested sending a certified letter explicitly stating that I did not abandon my personal property and intended to retrieve it, which would establish a legal record of my intentions. I drafted the letter immediately, listing specific items of sentimental value in my childhood bedroom, my journals, photo albums, artwork, and jewelry-making tools from my early years. I sent it via certified mail that afternoon. Next, I called Zoe to fill her in on my plans and ask for her help. Without hesitation, she offered her family's vacation cabin in the Catskills for our alternative Christmas celebration. "It's beautiful in winter," she said. "There's a huge stone fireplace, enough bedrooms for everyone, and it's only 2 hours from the city. My parents never use it at Christmas since they go to Florida." One by one, I contacted the friends who had become my true support system over the years. Lucas, my first retail partner who had given my jewelry a chance in his boutique. Sophia, a fellow maker who shared studio space with me during my second year of business. Michael, Zoe's husband, who had helped build my display racks and website. Each immediately agreed to join what Sophia dubbed our chosen family Christmas. The executive at Silver and Stone seemed surprised but pleased by my prompt acceptance of their offer. We scheduled a meeting for early January to discuss designs and production timelines. For the gifts, I contacted a high-end delivery service that specialized in personal gift presentations. The owner, intrigued by my story, offered to personally deliver each carefully wrapped piece on Christmas Eve, ensuring they would arrive at the perfect moment. With each step completed, I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation. The sadness was for the family relationship I had always wanted but never truly had. The liberation came from finally acknowledging this truth and choosing to prioritize my own well-being. I spent the next few days immersed in preparations for our alternative celebration, ordering food, planning activities, and creating small handmade gifts for my friends. I deliberately kept busy, knowing that idle time would only lead to doubt and second-guessing. 3 days before Christmas, a response to my certified letter arrived from my parents' lawyer rather than from them directly. It stated coldly that I could schedule an appointment to collect my belongings after the holidays, with a staff member present to supervise. The formal, impersonal nature of the response confirmed I had made the right decision. On December 23rd, I packed my car with gifts, food, and winter clothes, ready to drive to the Catskills the next morning. That night, I sat in my quiet apartment looking at my Christmas tree, a small but beautifully decorated fir that represented my independent life. For the first time since overhearing my family's plans, I felt completely certain about my decision. I was no longer willing to shrink myself to fit into their narrow definition of success. I would no longer apologize for choosing a path that brought me fulfillment rather than status. I would no longer accept being treated as less than because my dreams looked different from theirs. Tomorrow would begin a new tradition, one built on mutual respect and genuine affection rather than obligation and appearances. As painful as this rupture was, it felt like the first truly authentic Christmas of my adult life. December 24th dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the drive to the Catskills. The forecast predicted snow later that evening, promising the white Christmas that everyone dreams about but rarely experiences in the city. I finished loading my car and took one last look at my apartment, decorated with the handmade ornaments and natural garlands that my mother would have dismissed as crafty rather than elegant. Everything felt right. The drive upstate was peaceful, with holiday music playing and the scenery gradually transforming from urban to rural. By noon, I pulled up to the cabin, a beautiful timber structure nestled among snow-dusted pines. Smoke already rose from the chimney, indicating that someone had arrived before me. Zoe burst through the front door as I parked, rushing over to help with my bags. "Welcome to Freedom Christmas," she announced with a grin. "Michael and I got here an hour ago to start the fire and unpack the groceries." The interior of the cabin was everything a winter retreat should be: high ceilings with exposed beams, a massive stone fireplace with a crackling fire, comfortable furniture arranged for conversation, and windows showcasing the forest views. Michael was in the open kitchen unpacking grocery bags while Christmas music played softly from hidden speakers. "This is perfect," I said, feeling the tension in my shoulders release for the first time in days. Throughout the afternoon, the others arrived one by one. Lucas brought cases of wine from his brother's vineyard. Sophia arrived with her famous homemade pies and bread. Two other friends, Jamie and Daniel, showed up with additional food and decorations. By 4 o'clock, our chosen family was complete, and the cabin was filled with laughter, delicious smells, and genuine warmth. No one asked about my biological family unless I brought it up. There were no awkward questions about my business success or lack thereof. No one made subtle digs about my life choices or appearance. The contrast to my family gatherings could not have been more stark. At precisely 6:30, my phone began ringing. I had been expecting this, knowing that we would normally be gathering for Christmas Eve appetizers at my parents' home around this time. The first call was from Amanda. I stepped into one of the bedrooms for privacy before answering. "Hello, Francis. Where are you? Everyone is asking." Mom is freaking out. Her voice held more annoyance than concern. "I'm not coming," I said simply. A pause. "What do you mean you're not coming?" "Of course, you're coming. The whole family is here. Grandmother Harper just asked about you." I mean exactly what I said. I am not attending Christmas this year. You cannot just not show up. What am I supposed to tell everyone? This is so irresponsible, Francis. Just like your... She caught herself, but I knew she had been about to say, "just like your hobby business." "Tell them whatever you want, Amanda. I'm sure you'll find a way to spin it that preserves the family image." She sputtered in shock at my directness. Before she could respond, I continued. "By the way, gifts for everyone will be delivered this evening. I put a lot of thought into them. I hope you all enjoy them." I ended the call before she could respond. Within minutes, my phone rang again. Jordan, this time. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father. Another voicemail. Finally, the call I had been expecting and dreading, my mother. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello, Mother. Frances Elizabeth Harper. Where are you?" Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "I am celebrating Christmas elsewhere this year." "What do you mean elsewhere?" "The family is all here waiting. The caterer has prepared for our exact head count. Your grandmother flew in from London. This behavior is completely unacceptable." "Is it?" I asked, surprising myself with how calm I felt. "More unacceptable than planning to ambush and humiliate your daughter during Christmas dinner? More unacceptable than plotting to clear out her childhood bedroom while she sits at the table? More unacceptable than dismissing her career as a hobby and her achievements as childish?" Dead silence on the line. "Then I have no idea what you are talking about." Of course, she would deny it. "I overheard everything, Mother. Last weekend, in Dad's study. You, Dad, Jordan, and Amanda, planning your little intervention with Jordan's friend Steven to shame me about my finances. Planning to pressure me into quitting my business for a job at Dad's firm? Planning to clear out my bedroom for Cousin Bethany while I sat through your public humiliation." Another silence. Then a change of tactics. "Francis, you misunderstood. We are concerned about your future. This intervention comes from a place of love." I actually laughed. The sound surprising both of us. Love? Was it love when you called my handcrafted jewelry trinkets? Was it love when you compared my business to macaroni art on a refrigerator? Was it love when you said I was embarrassing the family because I don't have a corporate job like the Morgan's daughter? "You were eavesdropping," she accused, her voice hardening. I was about to knock on the door when I heard my name, and thank goodness I did, or I would have walked right into your trap. "This is ridiculous. You are overreacting as usual. Just tell me where you are, and we can discuss this when you get here." "There is nothing to discuss. I will not be attending Christmas this year, or any other gathering where I am not respected as an adult making my own choices. If you do not show up, your father will be furious. There will be consequences." The threat hung in the air, but for the first time, it held no power over me. What consequences exactly? Cutting me off financially? I have supported myself completely since graduation. Taking away my childhood bedroom? You were already planning to do that. Damaging the family reputation? I'm sure you'll find a suitable lie to tell everyone about my absence. Francis, you are being dramatic. No, Mother. I am finally being honest. I deserve better than the way this family treats me. I deserve respect for the business I have built. I deserve support for my choices, even if they differ from what you would choose. And since I cannot get those things from you, I am spending Christmas with people who do value me. I could hear voices in the background on her end, family members probably wondering about the phone call. Your gifts will be delivered this evening, I continued. I spent months creating personalized pieces for everyone. Whether you appreciate them or not is up to you. This discussion is not over, she said, her voice cold. Actually, it is. Merry Christmas, Mother. I ended the call and sat on the edge of the bed, trembling slightly, but feeling stronger than I had in years. A soft knock on the door preceded Zoe poking her head in. Everything okay in here? We heard your voice getting firm. I smiled at her concern. Everything is actually better than okay. I just stood up to my mother for the first time in my life. She grinned and held out a glass of wine. Then I would say that calls for a celebration. When I rejoined the group, no one pressed for details, but Lucas raised his glass in a toast. To Francis, the most talented jewelry designer I know, and the newest member of the Christmas cabin crew. As everyone clinked glasses, my phone chimed with a text notification. To my surprise, it was from my brother Jordan. Not everyone agreed with the intervention plan. Call me when you are ready to talk. An hour later, I received confirmation from the gift delivery service that all packages had been successfully delivered to my parents' home. I could only imagine the scene as each family member opened the carefully crafted piece I had designed specifically for them, along with the note explaining its significance and gently setting boundaries for our future relationship, if any. For the first time in my life, I was spending Christmas Eve exactly where and how I wanted, with people who accepted me completely. The weight of family expectations that I had carried for so long had lifted, leaving space for something new and authentic to grow. Our Christmas Eve celebration continued long into the night. We prepared dinner together, everyone taking charge of different dishes in the spacious kitchen. Unlike the formal, catered affairs at my parents' home, this meal was collaborative and relaxed. Wine flowed freely, stories were shared, and laughter echoed throughout the cabin. We ate at the large wooden table by candlelight, passing dishes family style, rather than being served by staff. The conversation flowed naturally, covering topics from creative projects to travel dreams to philosophical debates. No one was trying to impress anyone else or maintain appearances. It felt genuine in a way my family gatherings never had. After dinner, we gathered in the living room where Michael had built up the fire to a cheerful blaze. Outside, snow had begun falling gently, creating a picture-perfect Christmas scene through the large windows. Time for a new tradition, Zoe announced, bringing out a box of plain wooden ornaments and art supplies. Every year, we each create a new ornament to commemorate something significant from the year. As we worked on our creations, sharing supplies and suggestions, I felt a profound sense of belonging. My ornament took the shape of a bird leaving an open cage, painted in metallic gold and deep blue. No one needed me to explain the symbolism. Around 11 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from my Aunt Leanne, my mother's sister. Just heard what happened. Not everyone agrees with your parents' approach. Your grandmother especially was upset when she found out what they had planned. Your gift was beautiful. Thank you. Shortly after, another message arrived from a cousin. Your jewelry is incredible. Cannot believe I never knew how talented you are. Family dinner extremely awkward after your mom announced you would not be coming. Lots of questions she did not want to answer. The messages continued through the night and into Christmas morning. It seemed my absence had created exactly the scene my mother had feared, disruption to her perfect family narrative. Several relatives had apparently been quite vocal in their criticism of the intervention plan once it became known. The carefully constructed Harper family image had developed significant cracks. Christmas morning at the cabin was everything I had always wanted Christmas to be. We woke leisurely, gathering in pajamas around the tree to exchange the small, thoughtful gifts we had brought for each other. Mine were, of course, pieces of jewelry I had created specifically for each friend, capturing something essential about their personality or our relationship. Sophia cried when she opened her necklace, a delicate silver pendant incorporating a tiny replica of the first ceramic piece of hers that I had ever purchased. "This is why your business is successful," she said, wiping away tears. "You don't just make jewelry, you create meaning." After presents, we cooked breakfast together and then bundled up for a walk in the freshly fallen snow. The forest was magical, trees laden with white, the only sound our laughter and the crunch of snow beneath our boots. In the afternoon, I received a surprising call from Uncle Robert. I stepped outside onto the porch to take it, watching my breath form clouds in the cold air. "Francis, I want you to know I never supported that intervention nonsense," he said immediately. "Your business is legitimate and impressive." "Thank you, Uncle Robert," I said, genuinely touched. "That means a lot to me." "Things are quite tense here," he continued. "When your gifts arrived last night, it created quite a stir. Your grandmother opened her bracelet and declared it finer craftsmanship than her pieces from Tiffany. Then she demanded to know why no one had told her how successful your jewelry business had become." I couldn't help smiling at the image of my formidable British grandmother taking my side. "The truth came out rather explosively over dinner," he continued. "Your mother tried to downplay your absence, but your grandmother is sharper than they give her credit for. She extracted the whole intervention plan piece by humiliating piece. I have never seen her so angry." "What did my parents say?" I couldn't help asking. "Your father retreated to his usual defense, claiming it was for your own financial security. Your mother alternated between defending the plan and blaming you for overreacting. Neither approach went over particularly well with the extended family." A weight I had not realized I was still carrying lifted from my shoulders. It mattered somehow that others in the family recognized the inappropriateness of what had been planned. "There is something else you should know," Uncle Robert said, his voice softening. "I went through something similar with your grandfather when I chose architecture over joining the family business. It took years for him to accept my path, but eventually he did. Don't give up entirely on the possibility of reconciliation, but stand firm in your boundaries." After we hung up, I rejoined my friends inside, sharing parts of the conversation. Their supportive responses reinforced that I had made the right choice in prioritizing this authentic celebration over an appearance at my parents' perfect but hollow gathering. Late that evening, as we sat around the fire playing board games and enjoying leftovers, my phone alerted me to an email from Silver and Stone. They had reviewed my portfolio again and were increasing their initial order by 30%. They also wanted to feature me in their spring promotional materials as an emerging designer to watch. I passed my phone around, receiving enthusiastic congratulations and knowing that this opportunity would transform my business in the coming year. The timing seemed symbolic, this professional validation arriving precisely when I had finally stopped seeking approval from those who would never truly give it. The irony was not lost on me. By walking away from my family's Christmas and their intervention, I had created space for exactly the kind of success they claimed to want for me, just on my own terms rather than theirs. As the night wound down and friends drifted off to their rooms, I stood by the window watching the snow continue to fall. For the first time in my adult life, I felt completely aligned with my own values and choices. The pain of family rejection was still there, a dull ache behind the joy of the day, but it no longer defined me. I had chosen myself and in doing so, had discovered that I was surrounded by people who chose me too, exactly as I was. January brought crisp, clear days and a fresh start. 1 month after the Christmas that changed everything, I stood in my new workshop space, twice the size of my previous studio, with large windows providing natural light and enough room for 2 assistants to work alongside me. The Silver and Stone order had necessitated the expansion, and their spring catalog would feature my designs prominently, introducing my work to a national audience. Business inquiries had increased threefold since the announcement of our partnership. I was no longer a struggling artist, but the owner of a growing small business with genuine momentum. My family situation had evolved in complex ways since Christmas. As Uncle Robert predicted, different members had responded differently to my boundary setting. My mother remained coldly formal in her rare communications, still insisting I had misunderstood their intentions and overreacted. She had crafted a story for her social circle about my absence at Christmas, something about an emergency with a major client that simply could not wait. The narrative preserved her image while erasing my agency in the decision not to attend. My father had attempted to assert control in the only way he knew how, sending an email outlining financial projections for my business based on completely inaccurate assumptions about my revenue and expenses. The document included a timeline for when I would likely need to accept reality and join the corporate world. I responded with a brief but professional message thanking him for his concern but assuring him that my business was solvent and growing. I did not provide figures or details he could critique or dismiss. Amanda remained distant, clearly aligning herself with our parents' position, but surprisingly, Jordan had reached out multiple times, each conversation a little more open than the last. During our most recent call, he had actually asked thoughtful questions about my creative process and business model, listening with what seemed like genuine interest to my answers. "I never realized how much strategic thinking goes into what you do," he admitted. "It's not just making pretty things. You have to forecast trends, manage production, build client relationships. It's actually quite similar to what I do, just in a completely different industry." This small acknowledgement that my work required legitimate business skill and was not just an extended craft project felt significant coming from him. The most unexpected development came from extended family members. My grandmother had sent a handwritten letter expressing her admiration for my entrepreneurial spirit and exceptional craftsmanship, along with an invitation to visit her in London. Several cousins had placed orders for custom pieces, finally seeing me as a professional rather than the family misfit. As for my childhood possessions, I had scheduled an appointment as instructed by the lawyer's letter and arrived with Zoe for moral support. To my surprise, my mother was not present, having arranged for the housekeeper, Maria, to supervise instead. This small kindness, not requiring me to face my mother directly, was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of my feelings that I was likely to get. Maria helped me pack everything efficiently, occasionally slipping in comments that suggested she had been an ally all along. "Your mother tried to donate your jewelry-making tools to the community center," she whispered at one point, "but I told her they were expensive and should wait for you to decide." She did not know enough about them to argue. The journals, photographs, and mementos were now stored in my apartment, physical reminders of a childhood that had shaped me in both positive and painful ways. I was slowly sorting through them, keeping what still held meaning and letting go of objects I had only valued because they represented family approval. My friends, my chosen family, had remained steadfastly supportive throughout this process. Our Christmas cabin gathering had been so successful that we were already planning to make it an annual tradition. Several friends had booked appointments for therapy themselves, inspired by how I was working through my family dynamics with professional help. Dr. Winters, my therapist, had helped me understand that what happened at Christmas was not a failure, but a necessary step in my growth. "You set a boundary and held it, despite enormous pressure and lifelong conditioning," she pointed out during a recent session. "That is an achievement to be proud of." She was right. Through this painful process, I had discovered strength I didn't know I possessed. I had built a business that reflected my values and vision. I had created relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I had learned to trust my own judgment about what success and fulfillment looked like for me. Most importantly, I had discovered that walking away from toxic situations, even when they come wrapped in family ties and holiday traditions, can create space for authentic joy and growth. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to refuse to participate in your own diminishment. As I arranged the tools in my new workshop, preparing for a productive day of creation, I reflected on how differently my life might have unfolded if I had never overheard that conversation. I might have spent many more years seeking approval that would never come, making myself smaller to fit expectations that were never designed to accommodate who I truly was. Instead, that painful discovery had become a doorway to freedom. Not the freedom from family that my parents had threatened as a punishment, but the freedom to define my own worth, set my own boundaries, and create a life aligned with my values. This journey was far from over. Family wounds do not heal in a single season, and patterns established over decades take time and effort to change. There would be more difficult conversations, more boundaries to maintain, more grief to process for the relationship I had wanted but never truly had. But for the first time, I was facing that journey as a whole person, rather than a perpetual disappointment. I was Frances Harper, jewelry designer and business owner, surrounded by people who saw and valued all of who I was. The greatest gift I gave myself last Christmas was not walking away from my family's gathering, but walking toward my own truth. In choosing to value myself, I had finally broken free from the cage of others' expectations and found my own voice. What about you? Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and being true to yourself? How did you navigate that incredibly difficult terrain? Tell me what you think. I really want to know in the comments below.